Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Logically Speaking. Wendy Vargas with Olivero Law, and in today's episode, we're going to talk about child support, specifically what the difference is between the Department of Revenue Child Support Enforcement Program and the circuit courts. Child support orders or and to determine paternity in child support cases. Now, the circuit court has the authority through the Florida statutes to enter child support orders as well as part of a petition to determine paternity, petition for dissolution of marriage, petitions for support, petitions for parental responsibility, timesharing, and parenting plan. So while the Department of Revenue is focused on money, for lack of a better term, the circuit courts have to see the case and the family as a whole. So child support is a part of other avenues or other means in resolving family law matters. So another thing is when it comes to the Department of Revenue, as I stated, they deal with establishing and enforcing child support orders. They do not handle parental responsibility, parental rights, or timesharing. There is no authority for the Department of Revenue to intervene in those matters. Hence the reason why you have to file petitions in the circuit court in order to establish your parental rights, to establish a parenting plan, a timesharing schedule, and things of that nature. The Department of Revenue does not handle divorces. So if you and your spouse have children and would like to have the Department of Revenue establish child support or obtain child support from the other party, the other parent, and you guys are married, the Department of Revenue can enter an administrative support order for married parties. However, they cannot divorce you. So you still have to go to the circuit court in order to get a dissolution of marriage and a final judgment of dissolution of marriage. So there are some benefits and some deterrents to using the Department of Revenue as opposed to the circuit court. The main benefit for the Department of Revenue is that it's no cost to you. You do not need an attorney to file any paperwork or to go to any hearings. The Department of Revenue is actually represented by the Florida Attorney General's office. So when the Department of Revenue enters an order for child support or administrative order for child support, and it needs to enforce it and needs to go to court in order to get enforcement. Basically, somebody's not paying, then the Department of Revenue has counsel through the Florida Attorney General's office, and they will defend the Department of Revenue on behalf of the parent who is due their child support. So you have built-in counsel by going with the Department of Revenue. That's a great benefit. However, the deterrent to that is the Florida Office of Attorney General is not representing your interest as the parent and the person not receiving their payment for child support. The Attorney General's office represents the Department of Revenue. So you do not really have an advocate in that regard. Whereas with the circuit court, yes, you can file pro se, but your best bet is to obtain counsel to navigate the ins and outs of all the different parameters that are needed with specific petitions. So petition to determine paternity, establish a parenting plan, and timesharing and parental responsibility all have factors that affect child support and how child support will be calculated. So having counsel and an attorney assist you with navigating that area through the circuit court really is in your best interest. Another thing to keep in mind is that with the Department of Revenue, they are automatically included in any cases involving Title 4D. Title 4D is persons who recipients of any type of state benefits, Medicaid, SNAP, EFTs, basically funds from the government, any type of benefit that you get from the state. Most people get Medicaid or SNAP, food stamps. You're automatically enrolled into the Department of Revenue Child Support Enforcement so that the government can recoup the funds that they will be expending for this child. Department of Revenue is not the child's parent. Therefore, somebody has to be obligated to pay for these services, and child support enforcement is the main way of doing that. If you are a Title 4D recipient, you can still go through the circuit court as opposed to the Department of Revenue for child support enforcement as well. So you're not forced to go through just the Department of Revenue if you receive state benefits. You can still go through the circuit court for benefits as well. Overall, depending on the family situation and depending on the type of child support and also alimony, but we're just sticking to child support, the type of child support that you need and the things that are unique to your family. It is very important that you contact an attorney, a family law attorney that can specialize in both Department of Revenue administrative cases as well as circuit court family law division matters. So hope that answers any questions that some of you may have had regarding what's the difference between going to the child support office and going through the court. If you have any additional questions or need more advice or looking for counsel in this area and in this particular matter, feel free to give us a call here at Olivera Law. Thank you so much for your time, and it's a pleasure. Till next episode.